Dun, dun, dun. Episode 3. Can you believe it?
Feels like the first time.
And what's funny is that we try to record these way ahead of time. And what ends up happening
It's too much TMI.
is we wait till the very last minute, which is cool. This is why it's called Real Talk with KC and JoJo. What's up, KC?
What's up, JoJo?
So today we're going to talk about our own twin flame relationship journey, I should say, right?
Yeah.
So for a lot of you that do not know our story,
Just hopefully most of you.
Our story was very how do I say this?
Tumultuous.
That's a good word.
Tumultuous.
Gratifying.
Fulfilling.
Duality is what I'm looking at.
Difficult.
God, I can't get any words out there.
I got you.
So we started off with, I was 16 years old and he was about to turn 19, and today is his birthday.
Dirty.
Today is his birthday. Happy birthday, babe.
Thank
so
you.
How many years has it been? So how many years have I celebrated with you now?
43 minus 19.
Yeah, you know I can't do numbers right now.
Whatever that is.
So that's many years. And so throughout all of that, we've been through everything. We've been through it all. What you doing?
Checking the math.
Oh, checking the math. All right.
25
years together, celebrating your birthday. And what better way than to talk about that entire journey? Like when we first met, it was that initial
Wait, how much time we got?
45 minutes.
Oh shit. We might get to the third or fourth year.
No,
this is like a 5-parter.
We'll try to summarize it, and we'll summarize it, and then we can get into details. Are you nervous?
No, I'm anxious to hear what you say.
We could get into more details on another podcast.
So we've told this story many times, and whenever she tells the story, and it's natural, right? Like she tells it from her side, and it always makes me look really bad if you're hearing it for the first time, because we've done some really bad shit to each other.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm biting. I'm just like, I'm waiting to see.
No, but we could do this your way. It's your birthday. Why don't you tell the story?
Nope.
Why? Go ahead. Make me look bad.
No.
It's not even about that.
It's not about that.
It's not about that. We both have made, we've overcome it. We've both done bad things to each other, but the good thing is we have learned forgiveness and how enough is never enough, and we've just continued over and over. But it's interesting to see how we share the story after we've shared it so many different times, because essentially it's the same story, but our perspective on it varies. Maybe.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
No. I spoke so much. So I did a training yesterday, and I was by myself, so I didn't have her with me, and this is so much easier because you're here, and it's just like, I don't know, I feel like our brains bounce off each other a little bit.
Yeah.
So it makes it more fluid, whereas I'm over here drowning by myself in a sea of words.
Perceptions maybe.
So no, please, you tell the story. It's much more beautiful from your mouth.
No, all right. So we've been dragging it out. So we met at a movie theater. He was my manager at the time. I was 16. He was turning 19, like I said. And
which means I was 18.
Yes, you're 18. So really close to our birthdays.
Turning 19 sounds
Turning
cool.
19, yeah. I was in high school, he was in college. And so basically it was an instant thing where I had dreamt of him before. And it was a weird dream because I remember waking up and I was crying. I wanted to basically meet this guy in my dreams, and I wanted to go back to dreaming because it was amazing. The way that I described him to my mother was very specific, and even to how he looked. So when I went to the movie theater, got a job and everything, and met him, it was this instant like, oh my God, that's the guy of my dreams. And when my mom met him, she's like, oh, he does look like the guy in your dreams. So it was this connection of I couldn't explain it. And at the same time, we flirted back and forth for a little bit, maybe a couple months, and then we started dating in October. Halloween is our
Halloween.
October 31st is our that should say something.
Backseat of my Jeep in a church parking lot.
Yeah.
So interesting.
that's when he asked me,
And now she's a minister.
and and so we have been through it all. We were very young, and that first recognition was like, look, there's something more to us. There's a lot more than just this like physical attraction.
Infatuation.
Yeah, all of this. Like, we had this reading done. Actually, it was my first, I don't know if it was my first time I had a reading done.
It was my first time.
Yeah, and she was doing this. Her name, what was her name?
Man.
Oh, I could see her, but I forgot her name. Okay,
anyway,
it'll
I'll
come
think
back.
about it.
Yeah. And so she was doing this reading. He was upstairs, I was down, and I'm looking at the cards that I chose to represent myself, which was this girl laying on this couch with long black hair, and then the guy that ended up being the guy for me was a guy in an armored suit with flowers holding something else, a sword. And so everything that aligned about my past, the present, and the future, was like, okay, cool. But then he came downstairs. He was like, what's going on? So she did a reading on him. He ended up choosing, without knowing, the guy that I had ended up with. And the girl that ended up being for him was the girl that I had chosen. And then, past was the same, present was cool. And then our futures were exactly the same. And, remember that it had a lot to do with God and this like unconditional love type. Well, of course, at that point, we didn't understand. But looking back, it's like, okay, there was something to it. And it was that connection, an instant connection where we couldn't be apart until we were apart. So this is like our twin flame journey, but we didn't know we were twin flames. We didn't know anything about that. So
and I think for us too, like that's why it took us so long to go through, I think, some of the stages. Is that we both have huge egos, and those egos prevented us from, I think, growing and moving through stages quicker. Had we known that what the stages were and even understood what the relationship was, I think it would have given us a little bit more patience, maybe, right? You think?
And it would, or understanding. The
understanding would have allowed us to sort of navigate it quicker and probably have moved faster through the process. So I think anyone out there that sort of sees parallels in their own life, I mean, hopefully it'll speed up the journey for you as well. Just understanding the process and kind of what the relationship is.
And see,
we didn't know shit.
And I think that the word twin flame is just a label really for the male and female coming together and harmonizing unconditionally. Like that's really what it means. And they just put a label on it, but it's unconditional love and just getting there. People are always like, oh, I want to find my twin flame. Really, I mean, I don't think it's about that. I just really think it's about becoming one with yourself. And then the mirror of that reality starts to play out into your life where you attract that similar you, that person that is like exactly you, but just
I think I 100% agree. I think that the twin flame relationship is dramatized. Like it's made to look out as if like it being an NBA player, an NFL football player, right? Like I don't care how skilled you are and how good you are, those guys bust their ass to get and to stay in that position, right? And the twin flame journey is anything but the most difficult thing that I think anyone can go through, and it's that way because it's a journey inward. You have to fix yourself in order for that relationship to work. If you're not willing to fix yourself and face your demons, you're going to be banging your head against the wall for years.
And always blaming someone else and saying what somebody else did to you. Look at all the people that have had a divorce and yet they're still talking about what their ex did to them. Like you hear that a lot instead of, hey, I mean, it could have been mutual. Maybe it's something that you're not seeing within yourself that you could have been causing as well, because it's never just one-sided, right?
Nope.
So a lot of times it's in being in denial of not wanting to see what your own darkness is and wanting to fix it. And a lot of this it doesn't come with a manual. Like, here you go. Here's how you deal with a relationship and the journey that you're going to go through, etc. So of course we didn't know, we were young. And so, that first stage is all about recognition, temporary spiritual awakening. You feel this amazing feeling of carrots being waved in front of you of like, this is what it could be like. This is what that unconditional being on like cloud whatever feels like. Have a taste of it. Just taste it, because it's about to get ugly. And you have to remember that memory of what it tasted like, because that's what kind of makes you keep going through the hard part. You're like, no, wait a minute, I had a taste of this, I can have that again. How do I get there?
Yeah, I think that that first stage is like the metaphorical hook in the fish's mouth. I mean, it just sucks you in, immediately. And it's, I think, for me, it was intimidating. I wasn't intimidated physically by her, even though, I mean, way out of my league, right? In terms of just her overall beauty, but there was an energetic aspect that I didn't understand at the time that intimidated the hell out of me, because I didn't know what it was and I couldn't explain it. I couldn't, I just knew it existed, but I couldn't put it into words. Right.
Yeah.
And that
We
to
couldn't, we
me
didn't
was, yeah,
understand our relationship at all. It was
no.
very weird. It was so funny.
Yes. I was just, as you said, very weird.
It was like, what was it that I always go back to when we were in that bathtub and we were like, we are so dysfunctional. That's what it was. We are so dysfunctional. But I think you have to become dysfunctional. You have to tear down your old paradigm in order to reconstruct it. And in that tear down, things are going to be chaotic. So the next stage of our relationship was testing each other, right? I mean, we pretty much went from la la land to, hey, how much of your ego can I really take? And how much of, we just would press buttons and see how much we can take. And also tear down the parts of him and the parts of me that just weren't working, but we grew up conditioned. But we realized within each other that, hey, if you could just tear this part down, you'd be amazing. Right? Like,
Yeah,
we
for
saw
sure.
we saw the blind spots of each other that we just weren't seeing.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think that happens in every relationship, whether you're a twin flame or not.
Yeah.
But the hook doesn't stay in. The hook comes loose and the fish flies away. But for us, the hook just the further we got deeper into our relationship, the more that hook set in, and you couldn't get unhooked.
Yeah.
Right. But I keep picturing in my mind. I lost my train of thought. This happens every time we do this. Continue.
The hook.
No, it was before that, and I'm still trying to think of her name. I think it started with a D.
Denise.
Denise, yes.
It came to me right when you said that.
Denise, if you're ever hear this, thank you so much.
Yes. So basically, I'm going to read this to you because it sounds better when you read it. Characteristics of stage 2 is an initial temporary spiritual awakening of what does that say? Illumination, and it fades. So the ego, which is the little self, the conditioned self, begins to re-emerge. So how you first meet somebody and you're like showing your representative.
Best version of yourself.
Your representative is the one that meets the other person, and then all of a sudden you start getting to know the real person, the one where they hide all their darkness. They don't want to show you their darkness, but this is when it starts coming out. So one or both twins may attempt to fit the relationship into the old model of love, couplehood, and relationship as it relates to their ego desires and learned belief system. So inner conflict arises. Twins ruminate. What's ruminate? Ruminate on what they were taught to believe their beloved should be and how relationships are supposed to serve them. Both twins feel simultaneously inspired and toppled by the power of the union, and doubts creep in, making one or both twins begin to view their beloved critically or suspiciously. So the purpose of this testing stage is to cause outdated mental concepts about relationships to rise to the surface, to be cleared. And I didn't read the top one, but I'm going to just say that the purpose of the first one is to activate the memory of each soul's life mission and to help awaken each twin to higher self levels of consciousness. Because I don't think we're going to fight for our own like growth unless it's for somebody else at that age, right? Like you don't do it for yourself at that age. Nothing matters unless it's love. So anything you want to say? Anything?
Oh man.
No. So what happened during our testing stage, babe?
During our testing stage.
Yeah.
Um, oh my God, help me, get me started. So long
Oh
ago.
my God, so many things. I guess we started testing our limits as far as attitude, temper.
Yeah.
That was first.
I mean, I don't know how real are we gonna
This is
be?
real talk, so get real, babe.
Yes, I mean, we tested each other. This is where I guess infidelity sort of came in our relationship, and you can define that however you want. I think depending on your own viewpoints, is a kiss infidelity? I don't know, maybe. Definitely having sex with someone is infidelity, but I think
Mental,
the
emotional.
infidelity for each of us, though, I think was more product of us dealing with our own egos, because I know for us it was like you were intuitively, you wanted to turn yourself over to that person. Like I wanted to give everything I had to her, but at the same time I didn't really trust that she would handle that accordingly, you know what I mean? So I felt like Humpty Dumpty, that if I sit on the wall, eventually I'm going to fall off, and pieces of me are just going to be scattered all over the ground. But I feel like, looking back, that's part of the process,
Isn't
right?
that
Like,
fear of rejection
yeah, yeah, but it's gonna
or
happen, right?
abandonment?
Like, I mean, you're two people that come together. Ultimately, the longer you're with each other, you start, the dark side of you will come out. It has to,
Yeah.
right? And you then have to make a choice as a partner. Do I put up with the dark side, which can last years and decades, or do I, force my husband, my partner, to level up? And then that person then has to decide, am I willing to put into work, right? Am I willing to do the work internally to make this relationship work and to step into the best version of myself? But for us, I mean, the infidelity started right around in the testing stage. We both participated in that. We both did it for our own reasons. But I'd be curious to know, if this is a twin flame thing, but I've thought about it, and it's amazing to me the level of respect that we, I guess, cheated on each other with, if that makes any sense. And
What? Say that again.
the level of respect, like, I think I knew what my boundaries were, and I was willing to test them, and she needed to know that I was going to test them, and I think she felt the same way. But we never had affairs like it was a completely separate relationship, and we were still in our relationship and lying and keeping things from each other, right? I mean, it was like that to a degree, but not, and I'd have to get into details
Yeah,
probably for it
yeah,
to
yeah.
for it
Because
to
at
make
this point, it
sense.
would be like, well, you did what? You let him what? You what? You let her what? You
Yeah,
hear that all the time.
this might be the part that needs to be deleted, edited out,
What?
something. Well, all the
What?
stuff we're talking about, that just whole series. But
Why?
the testing, yeah. So anyway, so scratch that. We won't get into that. Maybe that's a whole another
That
podcast
is another
probably by
podcast. All
itself.
right.
But yeah, for us it was
Infidelity.
the infidelity that started, and we, um we did that to each other back and forth. And so
I think it was
ultimately,
like a getting back at, like you did it to me, I did it
uh-huh.
to you. I
Well,
mean, we all feel that type of revenge inside, or that type of and not on purpose. I feel like subconsciously
right.
we
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying respectfully. Thank you. It wasn't like vengeful. It was something that just kind of happened, but it didn't feel right still, right? Like, it wasn't like, I guess sex is always enjoyable, but it wasn't like afterwards, you felt
you
bad, but
felt, yeah.
right. I mean, there was guilt. I didn't really want that to be in my life. Like, it never felt good to do it. It was just almost like it was done for revenge, right?
Right. And it's one of those things that you don't realize until later on, because you just kind of get caught up in, like, subconsciously, right? We're thinking about it so much, we're in pain, right? We have all this hurt, and so then we create this, right? We manifest a reality where a
Situation.
situation occurs that will replicate or attract what it is that you're thinking. So like in one of my cases, I felt crushed and needed to not feel crushed, and so then I manifested a way to not feel crushed anymore. So it's like we don't even know we're doing that, but at the same time, that vengeance is still somewhere in the back of our minds, and it unfolds some way. So this is where forgiveness comes into play a lot, because I mean, really, how are we taught forgiveness?
Yeah. And too, and I think on a very deep level, there was a lot of testing, because I need to know that you always have my back, right? Like, how far can I push you and still you'll come back? How far can I push you and you'll still love me? Do you love me enough to forgive me for this? Right. And again, it wasn't something that was in the front, the front of our minds. But I think looking back, it was definitely a subconscious test that I think we both
Yeah, no,
engaged
I
in for
think we
sure.
all do that in a sense of like, if you can love me at my worst, then you can deserve me at my best, right? So it was kind of like, this is my worst. Do you still love me? Because then
Yes.
if that's the case, then yes, I'll give you and I'll open up to you and I'll give you everything I have. But it was that testing. And I think we do that because we shield our hearts from so much pain over time that they become so ice cold that we don't allow that person to come in. So it's like, can you deal with all this? It's like, I feel like Indiana Jones, when he's going through all the things to get to the cup of Christ, and he's got to go through and show like what he's like, is he worthy of that, right?
Right.
And I feel like we test ourselves and create all these things to see if you're worthy of it, but really it's about worthy of ourselves.
I love the fact that you just gave an Indiana Jones reference. That's amazing. But
Why?
I think you're getting into stage 3 too.
Okay,
So
so
yeah,
stage
let's.
3 is crisis. Let me just read that to you. The characteristics of stage 3, I have it really small so I can't see. The crisis of the twin is realizing they must reject their egoic beliefs about love relationships or reject their beloved. Having to shed the little self or the ego, the identity-based beliefs and desires to embrace a higher expression of love can lead to stubbornness and anxiety. So fear can take hold, triggering many dysfunctional emotional patterns. In staying present with the patterns, they can be witnessed and released. So despite fears, both twins naturally come together in cycles for bonding, confession, forgiveness, and lovemaking. So these rituals cement higher levels of consciousness into the energy fields of both twins. And the purpose of this stage is to provide opportunities for the healing and maturing of the mental and emotional bodies. So that's basically all the times that we separated but would come back to each other, right? That's what I'm
Yes.
getting from this part.
I mean, it was so bad for us that our son got to the point where he literally goes, "It's fall. Are you moving out, Dad?" It's like, really, man?
We would break up in the fall, but I think that has a lot to do with my natal chart, because my natal chart, all my planets are right there in Libra, Scorpio, and that's like transformation, sex, things like that. So it's and I didn't understand my chart back then. So a lot of times we do things so unconsciously and robotic because we don't know who we are. But once I understood, okay, there's a transformation process here. There's a lot that I need to shed and go through during the fall. And a lot of times one of us wasn't willing to stick with the other while we were shedding and while we were dealing with our own impurities and our own things that we had to let go of, right? So I think this is that time where we would come back together and we were like, why are we so dysfunctional? Like, we're apart, but we come back together for healing. We come back together to talk, to be friends. Like, we developed a stronger bond and friendship from, what it was? From the fact that we were still partners in this life, that we were both going through separate things, but we were still going through them together. And really it's like, if this is your life, and it is your life, if this life is a, what's it called when you go to an amusement park, right? And you're like, hey, come with me to the amusement park, and we ride all the rides together, whether they're good ones or bad ones or whatever. At the end of the day, when we leave the amusement park, it's like, hey, thank you for coming with me and going through all that with me, when I threw up, when I didn't, like, all of it. So I think that all the ups and the downs of our crisis helped us strengthen us, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like you haven't said much today.
No,
I'm like talking a lot.
No, you're good. You're killing it.
I'm just reading like what. Okay, so our relationship. All right, the runner dynamic. So this is stage 4. I hate that I have to keep doing this. The human ego naturally fears. Annihilation in the face of the unified consciousness encoded inside the twin flame union. That's so true. The pain body rises up, and the old ego survival mechanisms, or bottom of the barrel, the emotional and mental patterns like defiance, resistance, manipulation, anger, punishing, and judgment, they all arise. Isn't that true? One or both of the twin flames become emotionally and mentally flooded with deep pain from what feels like soul level rejection and abandonment. The unbearable soul level pain leads one or both twins to withdraw physically and block communication in fear and futility. One or both twins may unsuccessfully try to recreate the original unified harmony. And the purpose of the runner dynamic is to propel both individuals towards God for healing and maturation of the spiritual body. Why did you laugh?
It was the sentence about recreating the original unified harmony. What's the next stage? Go down a little bit. Surrender. Okay. Yeah. So like time sequence.
Yeah,
I think this will help out.
Yeah, we know what happened here.
So levels, we're on 4 and 5, right? Surrender's 5.
Yeah.
4. So level 4 for us was probably 2014, 12, 11, 13, 12, 13. And we got married in 2001, met in 1997. So you kind of see a timeline of how long we were stuck in stages 1, 2, and 3, just sort of going in circles and not willing to learn the lessons that clearly we needed to learn to advance in stages. We also didn't know about this process in 2012 and 2013. So we were still kind of ignorant to all of this information that we're sharing. Secondly, I think I laughed too because of the earlier in one of the earlier stages, you know, the chart.
This
one.
What about it?
You know, that she got a reading, I remember, from Philip, and you know, learned kind of where, you know, the houses, and I didn't understand anything about astrology at the time, zero. And that's really when I started learning astrology. But I laughed because it's amazing how that sort of led her specifically, and me too, down a path to where we are today. And back in 2013, is she knows super much about this, didn't know shit back in 2013.
Yeah.
But I laughed too about the unsuccessfully trying to recreate the original unified harmony, because for me, stages 4 and 5, they were horrendous. Like I remember everything that she read was the absolute truth. I felt like I never felt so lost, alone, and just like a pitiful piece of nothing, you know, sitting in the corner. And not to get into details, but, you know, for me, I had to endure it. Right. There was nothing that I can do. There was a time where, you know, I would try to get in my old ego pattern, which was this bit, I can't believe, like, you know, and beef myself up as if I'm right and she's wrong. But I couldn't. I had no justification for it, right? Like,
because you had done it too, and so
right.
you came from a place of understanding, which then opens your heart to, which this is stage 4, which is the heart chakra. You know, we're really looking at this in the sense it is.
You sound like the chick in Captain America when in what was that show with the heart and the anyway, go ahead.
I don't know, but
like
we're
Dora the Explorer. That's
oh my God, no, really. Oh my God. So we're in stage 4. And so that's grief, right? And we're having to break out of that. But really it's like a stage of, if you really want to open into the heart and get past the heart, you got to get over the grief. So I feel like we really went like,
yeah,
I was going through grief myself, just in a different way.
So, you know, real talk, to give some credence to the situation. So she essentially, I basically was like, the relationship's over. She had tried really hard to make it work the summer before this happened. And then I can't, like, I don't.
You have nothing left.
This doesn't work. We have nothing left to give. We've been around this circle so many times. It just is what it is. So she was crushed. I moved out, whatever. You know, fast forward to January, late December, and, you know, she had basically started a relationship with another dude. And that's when I hit rock bottom, right? But at the same time, the understanding that I had created this situation, like I put myself in this situation, I allowed this to happen with each and every choice that I had made up until that point. And I had to essentially deal with it, right? I had to just keep my mouth shut, smile, be there for her if I wanted, because I was at a place where you win, I give up. I don't want to do this anymore, right? Like, I don't want to fight with you. I don't want to continue going around the mountain, for 40 nights and 40. I don't want to
But
do it.
what's funny is that that's exactly how I was feeling when you said I'm done.
Right.
Is I was like, well, after everything we've gone through for so many years, miscarriages, children, like so many things we've gone through, breakups, everything, you're saying that we're done. And so that like brought up all the stuff from the past, and the pain was so heavy that I said, this isn't going to happen again. I don't want the cycle to repeat over and over. I'm breaking the cycle, and I'm going to just not go back to him at all. And so I feel like this time when I did find somebody else, the unsuccessful, what was it? The unsuccessful, whatever. This is how I found out about twin
Unsuccessfully
flames.
try to recreate the original unified harmony.
Yes,
Yeah.
I tried to do that. And so this is where I found out about twin flames, because I started getting 1111s and 111s, and I'm like, what is that? And I started looking it up, and it led me to twin flames, and I started looking all this up. And at that time I thought, with my mind being cluttered and my mind being in so much, well, my heart being in so much pain and not wanting anything to do with him, at the time, I said, wow, this is my twin flame, this new guy. And turns out he was a catalyst to show me that twin flames exist and that we were actually twin flames. So I'm grateful because it did teach us a lot of things. And, you didn't really change until this happened, because you felt like, what else can I do but be the better version of myself, because there's no other way.
Yeah. And that leads us into the surrender stage, which is,
Right.
the next stage 5. And so for me, it was that I surrender. Like, I will be here for you. And it's ironically enough, 6 months prior, I was like, I can't do this anymore. But 6 months later, I'm like, look, I understand your situation. I get it. It hurts like hell, but I'm gonna be by your side through this until you tell me that this is absolutely what you want and this is the route you want to go. And the minute you say that, I'll release you and I'll go about our separate ways. But funny enough, that never happened. Right. And she she kept me under her wing the entire time. And that's another reason why I use that respectfully word, in terms of how, imagine, she's literally in a relationship with someone else while we're friends and talking, and she tells me, about him and the situation and the relationship, but yet I couldn't let go. Like, I couldn't let go. So for me,
That's where we built a lot of our friendship.
yes. And I, in that surrender and in those choices, because believe me, it was very difficult for me. That's not my nature. I had to deal with like feeling like a little punk bitch to wanting to retaliate, to just being angry. But ultimately I knew that it's funny. It made me put my best foot forward, but authentically. So in other words, like we talked originally, when you meet, you show your representative. But at that point, I allowed my heart to like be released and showed her who I truly was without all of the stuff behind it, because I had nothing to lose at that point.
Yeah.
Right. And it was in that surrendering and opening up, despite all the reasons not to, that we sort of were able to get to the next stage. But
and what's funny is that it's not like we get to these stages at the same time, because you surrendered while I was in a relationship, but I didn't surrender until there was a point in time when I wasn't in the relationship anymore. I was by myself, and I still was going, what do I do here? Who is right? And even he had moved on and was in a relationship. So I was having to surrender the fact that he was not my twin flame. And I was also having to surrender the fact that, oh my God, I made a huge mistake. I divorced this man. Like, we got divorced and went out for lunch afterwards. And 2 months later, I realized, after surrendering, and surrendering really means letting go of control of what we think we want and surrendering to God, to what is best. At one point, I was so split down the middle. I was like, babe, listen to this reading and listen to this reading and look at why I'm so confused. Like it split down the middle, like whatever, it was just so split down the middle that it broke me. I didn't know who was what. And I feel like I was split because part of me was still connected to my past and the other part was, you know, my future. So it was like, do I want to let go of the old me and recreate, you know, this authentic version of me? How do I do that? It's kind of like we deal with it in relationships when really we're dealing it with
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah, and I think too, it's two things it's important to understand. One, I think you can bounce sort of in between stages. In other words, you know,
Yeah.
2 steps forward, 1 step back, kind of a thing. But then also, it's a lot like getting sentenced, but the judge doesn't tell you how long your sentence is, right? So in other words, surrender. It could be a year, could be two, could be 2 months. I don't know, but you have to stay in that surrender sort of state. And I think
Which
too
means
that
trust.
yeah, and I think too that, you know, for me, you know, just retrospect, you know, the stage of surrender lasted so long for me because that's what it took to truly get me to be the person that I'm now becoming, which is, you know, stage 6 and 7 in the illumination, right? And I mean, you know, it's crazy how when we go through these stages, and we'll get this into stage 6, you know, which is the self-realization, illumination, radiance, and then lastly 7, which is the harmonizing. Man, the harmonizing stage is so fucking cool. Like
It's all worth it, but don't skip
yeah,
6
it's all
now.
worth
Don't
it.
get
Yeah,
all
yeah,
into
we're
7.
gonna talk about
You
self-realization,
want to do
illumination,
6
and
so I don't
raising.
have to?
No, I don't
Really?
know.
Okay.
I've talked so much.
Self-realization. So I finally surrendered after 2 months of being divorced and finding that we're sleeping at each other's houses. We're like, what is the point here? Like, what are we doing?
Dumb.
Right. And so I moved in. He had bought a house 2 minutes away from where I was staying, and so that's what ended up happening. I moved into the house, and 2 months later, after our divorce, and then it took 2 years to really go through this self-realization radiance kind of before we got remarried. So let me read stage 6. Characteristics: the ego or the little self, the conditioned self, dies and the God force energy takes over the body. So this leads to a complete spiritual awakening, arriving at one's fully awakened divinity. This is a stage of radiating divine love rather than seeking romantic love. And at this stage, the surrendered twins' emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies arrive at full maturity. New creativity and healing abilities arise, which are put in service to assist others. And the purpose is to establish an outward flow of divine love through one's body and works, which vibrates at a level that uplifts humanity. So it wasn't until we got back together that we started with quantum entanglement in our business and going, you know, how can we use our experiences, because these were really experiences that transcend everything. I mean, it's very universal that you can apply to so many things. And I feel like this is when we said, okay, let's apply this. Let's use our mistakes as lessons that we can help others with. Let's, you know, I went and started doing my education in metaphysical counseling, and, you know, got my doctorate in that and became an ordained minister, a Trinity practitioner, so many things, so that I can help others, so that I can use these tools and my experience to help others. And then you went out and did life coaching, nutrition coaching, like everything that basically was that mind, body, spirit balance. We realized that he was looking at things from his point of view. I was looking at things from my point of view, but together, instead of being opposing duality the way we thought we were all this time, we were really just one. And we needed to look at it that way, because together, you know, he does the details. I do the bigger, you know, like yesterday, you know, he's typing the words and I'm making it pretty. It's like he's the left brain, I'm the right brain, and together we're one. That's the harmonizing stage.
Yeah, and sort of a good I guess example of what I think is harmonizing is that she's very intuitive. I mean, I'm intuitive too, but I mean, she's got the fastest Wi-Fi available. or internet
I love
available,
that. I
right?
love that.
I'm on dial-up, but I still get it, right? But
Yeah.
on the opposite side of things, I'm very in the weeds, in the details, planning, and she can do all that too, which is funny to me. Just like I have, a strong intuition, but it's nowhere near her level, and her planning is nowhere near my level, right? So I don't know. Anyway, month 2 months ago, we constantly, and I don't think we really realized this until then, but we're constantly in this sort of ebb and flow of, she intuitively says, let's do this. And I'm like, no, 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 because if we do that, then this and that and this, okay, we'll go that way. And most times it ends up being a shitty situation, right? Like we probably should have gone right instead of left. So
didn't we say this in the last podcast?
Maybe, but I think does that mean shut up?
No, I'm just saying.
So just to sum it up. So now we had the conversation and we're sort of paying attention and becoming aware of this. So whenever she says something, my job is not to oppose it. My job is to pay attention to how confident she is when she says it. Right. And if she's confident, then I'm going to listen to it and I'm going to follow it along and I'm going to be patient and I'm still going to be doing my planning thing, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut and let the situation unfold, because there's learning in that for me and faith growth in that for me if I can do that and keep my damn mouth shut. Right. Cool. If she hesitates, that's my signal to jump in with my Virgo powers, plan some shit out and make shit happen.
Yeah.
Right?
I love Virgo powers.
And we, that's I think an example of a harmonizing conversation that we had on how to use each other's strengths and weaknesses
that we wouldn't have had
to be better
years ago.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have understood even how to have that conversation at all.
Yeah, I would have taken it personal and been like, oh, and she would have taken it personal, and then it would have been an argument.
Yeah. So let me read what harmonizing is, because we just went straight to it, but not really. So characteristics are: by this stage, both twins have awakened and they come together in the physical to assimilate their newly evolved energies, flowing into the new dynamic of their unified potential. So both twins integrate fully into their third energy of unconditional love in a way that influences others towards their own heart opening. So the purpose of the harmonizing stage is to fulfill the intended mission of the twin flame union. And the twin flame relationship comes into your life to help mold you to embody the vibration of unconditional love. Because again, it's all about how much can we take, how much can we forgive, how much can we transcend the dark and really look at, and it's really about what we focus on. We can focus on all the things that we do that could annoy us or that we do wrong and just create this like huge paradox, or we can focus on the good things. So it's about perception too.
Yeah. And I think, don't get it twisted. Mirrors, your twin flame is your mirror, right? They will mirror back to you without you having to ask them all of your issues. Right. And it's hard, man, because if you're not willing to take responsibility and become aware of your issues, you're just going to have catfight after catfight after catfight, talking about a bunch of nothing for days and hours and years, when all they're doing is just mirroring back to you exactly what your issues are and what you need to work on.
Which takes us back to the like I said in the beginning, a lot of people that we see this in divorce, people that blame others for what happened, but don't really take the time to just look at how that's mirroring them and what it is that they need to fix within themselves so that it doesn't repeat again as a pattern with other people. And you look at patterns of people who have gotten divorced several times, and there's a pattern, and it's just, are you willing to face this pattern? Are you willing to go past the denial? I think a lot of times we were just in denial of
we were
of the fact that we weren't growing.
Yeah, we were very emotionally, our emotional intelligence was garbage. We're super intelligent people.
The seed was there. It
right.
just, we were not watering it.
Yeah. And and again, it gets into a deeper level of this conversation, which is, we're all brought up differently, right? We all experience a different home life. We all experience different things through our teenage years, which affect our fears and how we kind of approach things. So, for us, I think that we didn't have a strong foundation, right, of how a man should treat a woman, how a woman should treat a man. I think they were very skewed. I think we knew how we wanted it to be in some kind of like fairy tale world, but taking it from fairy tale into implementation and actually making it work in real life, zero skills. We had zero skills to do that. And I think for us, that's part of the reason why the journey took so long. But I think it's also a testament for how strong the freaking bond is of two twin
Started
flames.
from the bottom now.
You know, I mean, and that bond, man, dude, we've tested it. We've bent that bond as far as we could possibly bend it. And, you know, and ironically enough, and I hope you agree with this, I think you do, is that, you know, as I sit here today, I respect the level of respect that I have for this relationship. If I'm being honest with myself, it's not all, but a big portion of it is because I know that no matter what happens, I cannot let go. Right. Which means that if I fuck it up and I have to deal with the consequences of my own errors, I'd never want to go back to that level of pain that I felt. You know what I mean? And it's kind of shallow in a way to say that. But
it's the
but
pain
it's real
for each other. Like if you experience pain now, I feel that pain 10 times more. I mean, not more than you, but I'm saying than I did before.
Yeah.
You know, whereas before I think I would shield your pain, like whatever. Now it's like, oh my God, he's in pain. Let me just get over my own shit so that we can not be in pain, because it's really just, we think it's the other person, but really we're in pain too. So it's just like, hurry up, fix it.
And I think for dudes, it's a little harder to deal with infidelity, and that may be because of, you know, how we're brought up, because we're men and men don't allow that, you know, whatever. But you know, the amount of understanding and respect I've developed for the relationship. I mean, I would not necessarily be always concerned that she was cheating on me, but I think, you know, you always, is she talking to someone else? Is he talking to someone else? I have zero doubts nor cares.
And we had that feeling like we both, like I would want to look at his phone and he'd be like, what are you doing? I'm like, who is this? Why is she talking to you? Da, 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 da. You know, and I think we all go through that. And it's like, now we're at a point where his phone could be right there and he's not scared that he has it there, and I'm not even wanting to look at it. It's like I can care less, because it's kind of like we're past that.
And it sounds very childish, but, you know, I think it's something that all couples struggle with. You know, geez, I mean, dude, there's umpteen million different ways to access, like, to reach out to someone, you know, through anything technological, right? So I mean, it's easier now than it ever has been. But, you know, that depth of respect that I have for her and for the twin flame relationship, I mean, at this point, it's amazing to think that's all that keeps me in check. You know, if there's ever just a slight thought of anything, and I'm not just talking about, you know, infidelity or sex related things. I'm talking about raising my voice, you know, how words are used. You know, that level of respect is so deep that it just keeps me in check all the time.
Because you know that you are now a lighthouse. We are now a lighthouse for others. And so it's like we have this responsibility to play out, because if we went through these stages and now we have come to like this harmonizing stage, and now our job is to be that lighthouse and help the vibration of unconditional love radiate to others, then we have a big responsibility. And when we mess up, like when we fight, because it's not like we don't fight, when we fight, I don't want to do anything. I'm not on social media. I don't want to help anybody. I just go into this like deep crash of, I'm just going to lay in bed and sleep this out. And so it affects everybody, because then my mood, you know, I don't want to pass that mood on to the whole world. And I feel like my job is to help, you know, as a light worker, to help lighten the world. So when we fight, it's like the world is dark. That's a huge responsibility we have, you know?
Yeah, it's cool because like where we are now,
it's like, it's your fault, fix it before everybody goes really dark.
Yeah, like we used to have a lot of 3D fights, like earthly fights,
yeah,
if you want to say it that way.
Fights.
Now we're like have energetic fights, right?
And
and it's not a thing where you don't speak to each other. But I remember a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, yo, why you being stank? And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, come on, man, you're not. Like for example, we took our dog Betsy. She's like the queen of the house. To the kennel or whatever, because we went out, the pet luxury hotel for like 3 days. And she came home and got up on the couch and she stuck her ass in my face and sat down with her ass towards me instead of, she never does that. And I'm like, this chick is mad at
She
me.
always puts her head on.
But
Yeah.
that's the energetic type of argument I'm talking about. Like, things are just different. You don't feel in harmony. You feel disconnected.
Yeah, and you can just
And
tell.
yeah,
It's
you just
like
know.
it's part of, it's like you're one. It just doesn't feel right. Yeah.
Yeah. So the arguments become less about words and more about energy, which is, I don't know, kind of cool.
Down to the point where I know exactly where his pain is because it's right there. Because
Right.
yeah, because it's where my pain is. It's usually the opposite place, but it's crazy. He'll be like, rub me, and I'll go right to it. And he's like, how do you know? And I'm like, because that's where I feel my pain. So we've become so harmonized that I know what he's going to say. He knows what I'm going to say. And so sometimes we just get into arguments about, well, did that come, like, who said it first in our mind? Like, I thought it first. No, you thought it first. Well, maybe you came, so all these things that are beyond the earthly. And it's just really for fun because it's fun to argue about energy, right?
Yeah. And I mean, and harmonizing doesn't mean you're done. I mean,
Not at all.
I think just stressing kind of as we finish up and summarize, all 7 stages, I think you go back to them in some degree, right? Mm-hmm. Like we before we had our pregame or whatever, and we talked about the 7 stages being similar to the chakras, right? Sorry. Gee, man, what
this way, baby.
Which way
this
is
way.
it? This way. We talk about the 7 chakras and how each stage kind of corresponds to it. And if you know anything about chakras, you could your red could be open and your orange could be open, but then your blue could be closed, and then your blue opens and then your red closes. So there's this constant kind of ebb and flow of kind of going back to that
it's
stage.
Like the piano and trying to get harmony in it, because right. The key is out of tune.
So it's not about, oh, I got level 1, I'm done, I'm on to level 2. No, it's like Mario. You kind of, if you want to experience level 8, you got to get through all the levels, and now you got that cheat code, right? So you can go to level 4 and jump to level 8 to get to level 8 faster, but you still got to go
learn
through
the lesson. Yeah,
right. So if you're experiencing this, if you're kind of in this journey, especially if you're in the beginning of it, just know, do your best, put your best foot forward. It's a process, but it's worth it. Yeah, it's so worth it in the long run, because we when we stare off into each other's eyes and remember, no, I ain't doing it. when we do that, and the depth of the connection and the depth of the love far supersedes any like self-gratification or any sort of like one night stand or affair. I mean, it's not even on the same level, and I think that for us, getting into that harmonizing stage, the rewards, it's worth it. You just have to keep grinding, for lack of a better term, but just keep on being willing to do the work, do your own work. Don't worry about the other person, because right. they have their own work to do, and you can't influence that. All you could do is support it, right?
That's where that surrender kicks
in. And so you have to do the work yourself and be patient with the other person, which is so freaking difficult. But if you can do it, there's rewards, and there's a beautiful harmonizing stage to look forward to, and it's it's definitely worth it. For real.
Well, that pretty much sums up our relationship. It's obviously all under an hour, maybe. So yes, it's definitely just a summary. I actually wrote a lot about our relationship in my book, Spring Manifestation, which is on Amazon if you want to check it out. But the one I'm writing right now, Summer Love, is specifically on relationships and basically how we are all quantumly entangled in this web of life and how relationships help us grow. So stay tuned for that one when it does come out in the summer. I hope by next summer.
If you put a date, you'll do it.
I know. I haven't put one yet. I don't. I want to see what I do first. All right, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Happy birthday, baby. And this is episode 3. The twin flame journey that we have been on. So thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it. And we will see you guys next Thursday. Peace.